I'm here with Sylvia Braaten, the current United States women's rugby strength and conditioning coach and head coach of the national champion Harvard women's rugby team.
Assistant coach.
Assistant coach of the Harvard women's rugby team and a two-time World Cup performer with the United States Eagles. Sylvia, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so first things first, congrats to you and the Harvard team for winning the championship this year. I saw that Harvard Athletics gave you guys a nice shout out on Twitter the other day.
Yeah, I think we got top 5 in the century in terms of rugby, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet. Well, before we get to that, let's wind the clock all the way back, and I want to ask you how you got into rugby and how you first picked up a rugby ball.
Yeah, we're winding back quite a ways. So I didn't start playing rugby until college. I went to Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and grew up, my first love was basketball. And so wanted to play basketball, but got to campus and they have this day where all these different clubs and organizations set up around the union, and students can walk around, freshmen can walk around and see what's available. And rugby had a table, and what they were doing to recruit is they were just throwing the rugby ball at oncoming walkers, and if you caught it,
nice.
They'd wave you over, and thinking that you had enough ball handling skills to maybe pick up the game. So I caught the ball, went over to the table, and got some information, went to a practice, and just right after first practice fell in love with the game, and started playing from there. And then rugby really took over my life and just kind of completely changed the trajectory of everything. So I'm extremely grateful for that initial opportunity to get to learn and play the game.
Did you find that having a background in basketball helped you with picking up rugby real quickly?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, rugby is one of those sports where it, really combines so many different athletic aspects from all different backgrounds. So I was fortunate. I grew up playing a lot of different sports. So basketball was my main love, but I played tennis and soccer and ran track. And so I think that having a vast background in terms of general athletics really helped in terms of my ability to pick up the game of rugby.
I agree. That's what I always tell people when I'm trying to, convince buddies to play rugby. I'm like, it's not like hockey or soccer where you have to learn these totally new skills. Like you've kind of acquired a lot of the skills in rugby, through other sports, and they're pretty applicable and transferable. It's kind of what I think. And so, I mean, I think it makes sense that you transitioned pretty quickly into rugby. And so you played at Marquette. Was Dwayne Wade there?
He was there the year before I got there. So he graduated, I think in 2003, and I joined the fall of 2003. I was a freshman, so I just missed him.
Nice. So how was your first, experience with, playing and going through college rugby before you got to the Eagles?
Yeah, so college rugby was awesome, and extremely grateful for the coaches that I had there, Tom Schmidt and Linda Niemela. They kind of opened my eyes in terms of what rugby could be. And I remember my first year playing, Tom invited the U19 coach to come watch one of our games. He saw some potential in me. And so my first year as a freshman, I got invited to play with the US U19s. So back then the pathway is a little bit different than what it is now. So it was U19s, U23s, and then the senior side. And we had a regional rugby as well. So, or the state rugby, Wisconsin select side, and then Midwest select side. So kind of made my way through all of those different programs. But my first year at Marquette is when I made the US U19 team and got to go to England on tour. And quiet.
Is that the big German Shepherd I've heard about?
Yeah, I have. She's a big long-haired German Shepherd, and then another little dog here. So got our hands full.
So you went to
but
England.
yeah, so we went to England with the U19s, and when I went there, rugby, you talked about learning the game. I didn't even know at that point how much a try was worth. I would just keep in my head. Like we scored 3 times and we made 2 conversion kicks to their, 1 try. And so I was so new to the game, but I just, soaking up everything I could. And then throughout college, made my way through some of those other select side teams and became captain of the Marquette team. And then after college, I played with Chicago North Shore. And during that time, I made the U23 squad and got to go to New Zealand with the US U23s.
Wow.
And then really just, kind of started to set my sights on, okay, I can do this. I want to play in a World Cup. I want to be on the senior side of the women's national team. And so just really set my sights on that, and geared most aspects of my life really to training to make that happen. And 2011 is when I got my first cap with the national team, and then got to play and represent the U.S. in 2 World Cups, 2014 and 2017. So
that's awesome. So you went to Chicago North Shore. Was WPL up and running yet at that point?
No, so it was still D1. I graduated Marquette and went and played with Chicago North Shore. I was still living outside of Milwaukee at that time, and so I was just commuting back and forth to Chicago.
How far is that?
What's that?
How far of a drive is that?
It depends on the traffic, so the time of day. So driving down to practice would take about 3 to 4 hours, and then driving back would take a little over an hour. So so that was quite the commute.
You were dedicated though.
Very, and that was the highest level that I could play at the time. I was playing with Chicago North Shore, and I did a full-time internship at Depaul University in Chicago. So my last semester of college, so I actually started playing with Chicago North Shore then, and so it just made sense to make the commute and stay with the team. And then in 2009, when they formed the WPL, that's when I made the move up to the Twin Cities to play with the Amazons, Twin Cities Amazons.
Cool. So you also obviously have now a background in high performance personal training, and you've moved on to be a strength and conditioning coach with the Eagles. Is that what you were interning at Depaul for? Yeah,
so I went to Marquette. I graduated with a degree of exercise science.
Okay.
And did a full-time internship at Depaul University, working with their athletics program, their strength conditioning department. And then after college, spent about 2.5 years at Marquette University High School, which is an all-boys high school in Milwaukee, as their assistant strength conditioning coach. And then when I moved,
were you doing all sports?
Yeah, all sports, working with all sports, all athletes. Mainly just working to develop the athlete as a whole, getting them better for their sport. And working with youth is a little bit different, kind of, because you're working with athletes that are, majority of them are multi-sport athletes. So just kind of working to maximize their athletic potential and help them stay healthy and continue to play. So I was fortunate enough, while I was pursuing my rugby career as a player, I was still able to advance in terms of my career in strength conditioning. So I got to work at the high school level for the majority of it, almost 10 years at that level, and then as well as doing some working in the private sector, as a director of performance for 2 different performance facilities.
Nice. So when you got that first call that you had been called up to the Eagles, what's going through your head, and who made the call to you?
So Pete Steinberg was the coach. He was actually the head coach for all of the years that I played internationally. So it was his first year as head coach. Oh man, it was surreal. I was so excited to get the opportunity. But that's not necessarily mean that you would get capped. You only get capped in the things that you play. So I was really just looking forward to the opportunity to go out there and try to earn that first cap and do do whatever I could to build on the team's success. We were just getting, they had come off a World Cup in 2010, and so it was the first year where they really just, expand their reach, looking for players, and so I just wanted to, prove that I could be there and then start that journey. So,
was there any sort of conflict or reservations for you about balancing full-time work and playing with the Eagles and traveling and such?
Yeah, I mean, that's always a challenge, is the time commitment that it takes to to be available for camps and tours, be gone for long lengths of time, and then the training as well that goes into the preparation of that. But I was extremely fortunate to be in the position that I had. So during most of my time for my playing with the Eagles, I worked as a head strength conditioning for Totino Grace High School in Minnesota, and they were extremely supportive. It was awesome. So they, as long as I could get coverage, and I used several of the other sport coaches to help me provide coverage while I was gone, to make sure that nothing kind of fell off the wayside. I was able to say yes to all of the camp invitations and yes to all of the tours, and so I was one of the few really fortunate players to be able to have that kind of support system.
That's nice, definitely. Do you remember your first cap?
I do. Yeah, it was my first tour. It was Nations Cup 2011. We were in Canada, but the game was against South Africa. And I remember it because, so one of the things I always pride myself on my fitness and my work rate. And I remember that game. It was an evening game, so most international games play later on in the day, and that was something that I wasn't really used to. Most club games you play 11, by 1 o'clock you're done, and so I spent that whole day. I think it was a 5 p.m. kickoff, just amped, just listening and watching pump up videos and just on the edge of my seat, being so excited for the opportunity. And I was coming off the bench, so I wasn't sure if I was going to get on the field or not, but just playing through all these scenarios and visualizing, the hits and everything like that. And by the time kickoff came around, I was so exhausted from all of the just being on that high all day long, that I had never been so tired in my game. I got to go in and play a decent amount of the game, but I remember being so tired. And that was a wise, good lesson to learn in terms of managing that stimulus. The fatigue sets in quickly. But
did you guys win?
We did, yeah.
Nice. So who is someone that when you first came into the team you kind of looked up to as sort of a guide?
That's easy. She's one of my best friends right now, Linnell Kugler. She was, I was fortunate enough to be able to play center with her in Twin Cities with the Amazons for most of my club career as well. And she's just a beast. But being able to play next to her, she really just brought up the level of my play and the level of my physicality and just the way that she carried the ball, the way that her strike running, learned a lot from her with that. And then just in terms of how she would just hit other players. So it was those hits that take your breath away. So getting to play next to her, and she was an Eagle. She was competed in the 2010 World Cup, and I trained with her a lot in that year leading up to that. So we became really close, and just playing off each other, trying to do whatever we could to make each other better. I mean, working for hours, tackling each other, and doing that was a blast. So
that's great. Yeah, I think it's important to have someone that kind of can be a sort of a mentor figure, when you come into a new team and a new setup. And that's good that you had that in Minnesota and then were able to transfer to the U.S. team. So where was the 2013 World Cup?
2014, it was
Oh,
in
2014.
France. Yeah, it was in France.
Okay. How was that experience?
Surreal. Yeah, the first World Cup is just, I mean, that's the highest, it's the epitome of their sport, so, and we had a residency is actually some of my favorite moments or memories. We had a residency for about 2 weeks in Granville, so in the northwestern France, the Normandy region, and we stayed at this sailing club. So we just had this incredible scenery, and you just work all day training, playing, and then you get to come home and see this beautiful scenery and go to bed. And yeah, so it was a surreal experience, and I was extremely fortunate too to be able to have a ton of my family come over and watch. So almost all of my immediate family came over, and then some aunts and uncles, my grandmother. So I think I had like 14 family members over there to watch. So yeah, it was incredible.
That's pretty great. Did you notice, was there any sort of difference from the 2014 World Cup to the 2017 World Cup in terms of, I guess, just the evolution of women's rugby, or did you feel like the standard it was largely the same?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think there's definitely evolution in the game. Especially in the women's game, I think more and more players are picking up the game earlier, which means that the skill level goes higher, which attributes to a faster pace of play.
Hmm.
So I think you can see that definitely just in the evolution of the sport, and feel that as well.
Yeah, I was out in, I think it was November in Glendale for the WPL championships. And I think they played on Friday and Sunday. And on Saturday, the college teams played. So there's like a round robin between, I think, Life, Lindenwood, Central Washington, and BYU. And the standard of the WPL, I was really impressed with, just because I had never seen it up close. But the standard at the college on Saturday was like outstanding. Like, especially Lindenwood, I was watching them play and I was like, geez, they look like they've all been playing since they were like 8 years old. I was like, it's just good to see. And you see it in the boys game too, like more and more, collegiate players have been playing their whole life. And it's just good to see. I think it's good for the game moving forward. More and more young kids are playing.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And that's only hopefully just gonna continue in terms of rugby across the U.S. is if we can learn the game at a much younger age. We'll have a better ability to compete at the highest level too, competing against players that have grown up with ball in their hands. So
Exactly.
yeah.
So I guess switching gears, I want to kind of look into how you got into your role now as the head strength and conditioning coach, and kind of how that started. Winding back to, you were at the internship in Depaul, and then from there you went to Minnesota. So how did you get into the high performance training?
Yeah. So yeah, where I went to the internship from at Depaul University, and then after that worked at the all boys high school in
Yep.
Milwaukee, and fell in love with that age group. Like working with the high school athletes was a blast. But when they formed the WPL, decided to make the move up to Minnesota, and spent about a year kind of getting my footing there, and trying to find a position in the strength conditioning sector, because there's often in terms of exercise science, there's like two routes you can take. You can go more corporate or personal training, or you can go more S&C, strength conditioning, working with teams, athletes.
Right.
And I definitely wanted to be on that route. And so I found stumbled upon Totino Grace High School and saw that they were building a brand new fitness center, and reached out to them to see if they had anybody in terms of running it, and running, and just letting them know like what I could do to help with their teams. And fortunately was brought on, and so I trained as the head strength conditioning coach for Totino Grace High School, and worked with all of their athletic teams, from football to dance. I mean, you name it, I had all the teams in there, being able to train all those athletes. And I was there for about seven years, and then went to work at the private sector, and I was a director of performance at two different athletic performance facilities. And during that time, also got out to train full time at the Olympic Training Center in the lead up to the 2017 World Cup. So after that World Cup, I got a call from Emily Bidwell, who was one of my 2014 teammates, and she's the high performance director for USA Rugby right now. And she just, asked me, she's like, what are your plans? Are you planning to retire, or are you gonna, keep the boots on, or what? And so I just told her that, I was thinking about kind of retiring and focusing more on my career. And that's when she invited me to be on the high performance team with USA Rugby. So I worked under Ian Jones, who was overseeing the senior side, and I oversaw the U20s. So I worked for a year, a little over a year, about a year and a half, with the US U20 team as their S&C coach, but then also got to do some sport coaching with them as well. And so went on tour to England with that team, and then earlier this last fall, 2018, Ian called me up and just kind of asked my interest in taking a step up and working with the senior side. And so very, very fortunate to be able to be in that environment and give back to the game. And then so now I'm the lead of the S&C for the senior side, but Ian oversees all the programming and the group as well. So he and I work together with that.
Well, that's awesome. So did they ask you to relocate from Minnesota?
For the USA Rugby?
Yes.
No, all that work is done remotely. So since the team is kind of scattered all across the US, everything with the US Rugby is done in a remote fashion. And then we'll go to the different camps and training, training camps or regional weekends or tours when they happen. But everything else is done remotely. So I moved out to Boston.
Right.
The Harvard job. Yeah. So that's another awesome story. So rugby's just, been, like I said, completely changed the trajectory of my life. But at the time, I was director of performance at a athletic facility here in Minnesota, ETS. And I got a call from Mel Denham, who is the head coach at Harvard. And she was one of my, I played with her for years in both USA Rugby, and then played against her for years in the WPL. So knew her very well and always admired her coaching mind, and just her as a person. She's great. So she called me up and asked what I was doing and if I'd be interested in the opportunity. And so I flew out, did the interview at Harvard, and kind of learned more about what it entails, and then obviously got offered the job and accepted. And now I'm just extremely grateful to be able to work with rugby in a full-time capacity, kind of the best of both worlds, both to develop athletes in the sport itself at Harvard, but then also still being, very involved in terms of the strength conditioning aspect of athletic development with the U.S. national team.
That's pretty awesome. Good, working both angles, coaching and this S&C. Were you with Harvard last May in the Sevens National Championships?
No, I started at Harvard in August.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw them play. I was out at Nationals with my team last May and went and watched them play live. And they beat Life, and I was pretty surprised. But I was really impressed because Life, I know, had won either the year before or 2 years before that, the whole thing. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Tell me just quickly about your season this year, and y'all won the NIRA, which is the highest, pretty much the highest level there in the fall for women's collegiate rugby. Y'all won the championship.
Yeah, I mean, it was an incredible fall. I mean, lots of ups and downs, but the team, right off the bat, in the beginning of the season, we kind of did some goal setting and asked with the team, like, what would make this a successful season, and what are we striving for? And that was really helpful because that kind of guided, everything that we did. And during, moments of struggle, or we lost our first game against Army, and lost by,
came back to
and then had to come back and beat them in the championship. So just the team's ability to respond to adversity and stay en route, is just incredible. And working with Harvard athletes has been a really big blessing. So that was a big learning initially. I'm used to, especially in the world of S&C, I'm used to bringing a certain level of intensity to practices and trainings. And I found off first practice that I did not do that. Like, they bring it themselves. Like, they are so motivated and driven as athletes. And they will do anything you tell them to, especially if you give them the why, right? Which I think is really, really important in terms of coaching. But they just work so hard and want to do everything to the best of their ability. So you don't always get to coach, an entire group of athletes that come with that kind of mindset and drive. So it was really special experience, and being my first fall in the collegiate scene, and going through and then winning the national championship was awesome.
Yeah, you're off on the right foot.
Yeah.
Sure. So I guess I have to wrap this up, unfortunately, fairly soon. But I do want to ask, as S&C coach during this lockdown and the quarantine, what are you guys doing with the national team, in this time off?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Obviously, it comes with certain number of challenges, in terms of equipment access to field space, having teammates available for skill work. So in general, we've put a pretty big focus on trying to find ways, being creative, where we can still get an adequate stimulus, especially in terms of neuromuscular development, so speed and rate of force. So big emphasis on sprinting, jumping, doing a lot of unilateral work, single leg stuff, and finding ways to get creative in terms of loading so that we can minimize the loss in terms of strength and speed and power, so that we can be at a better position to build back up when we start prepping for, we're hopeful, for an August camp. So we'll see, but yeah, hopeful. I mean, it's just a lot of different challenges, but I'm just getting creative and providing some different options based on, what they have access to, and trying to find ways to still get adequate stimulus.
Yeah, I think that would also be the biggest challenge is, most gyms are locked down. So like you say, getting equipment and stuff, because I'm sure you can't really do a whole lot of weight training right now.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, and unfortunately, lower load exercises don't give quite the same stimulus to the neuromuscular system. So trying to find ways, how can we apply, a higher intensity stimulus? How can we continue to get adaptations during this time, given the lack of load? So yeah, and both from a performance standpoint, but then also from a injury, reducing injury risk when we get back into things, in terms of that progression, what does that look like? So yeah, a lot of things come into play, but just getting creative and then just really trying to stay connected, as a team, connected with the athletes, and yeah, doing what we can, given the fortunate thing is that everybody's in the same boat right across the world. So like everybody's Everybody's
It's a
just
level playing field.
managed it's a level playing field. So it's just a matter of, in terms of our preparation and getting back into the swing of things whenever that may be.
We're lucky at our rugby club in Austin, the Austin Huns, that we actually this past winter built a outdoor gym out there under a big gazebo. So that's been like a sanctuary for people to go, lift weights and get some exercise in out of the field. So that's actually been kind of crowded, maybe breaking some social isolation rules, but it's been nice to get to lift and stuff. So obviously, Sophie.
Yeah.
Sophie says hi, and she wants to know if you are going to do this handstand challenge that some of the Eagles players have been doing.
Oh, okay, yeah. So actually, I gave them that challenge.
Okay.
So that's another thing we've been doing in this environment is just finding ways to, like I said, stay connected, build community, and outreach, right? Build community outside of the team too. And so each week I send them a weekly challenge, Monday morning, and then I've been tracking their participation and giving points and so on. So everyone loves to compete, right? So it becomes this weekly competition. So
AJ kind of killed it on the handstand.
Yeah. I mean, it's so fun to see, to see them respond to these challenges and get creative. This week is a creative sled pull. So finding, being resourceful and creating some kind of heavy sled that you can drag around and
nice.
One of my the other week it was Eat the Rainbow challenge. It was built around nutrition and eating colorful nutrient dense foods. And that probably had the greatest participation.
Everyone likes food.
Yeah, everyone loves to eat. So fortunately, it was full of a lot of color and choosing good choices. So so if you guys have any ideas for fun challenges in the future, send them my way and we'll get them going.
Good deal. Well, Sylvia, thank you so much for taking your time to chat with me, and this was really fascinating for me, and it's cool to get to put a face to the name because I've heard about you a lot, and your story is really cool, and I wish you guys the best of luck with Harvard and with USA Rugby moving forward, and like you said, I hope we can get more and more rugby balls in more and more kids' hands moving forward.
Yeah, that's the goal. Let's go. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Had a blast.
Thank you. Give me a fist bump. Thanks, Sylvia. Okay.